Hey, welcome back to our show. So, for those of you who are new to our show, this is our year of magical learning. We named it YOML. So, YOML 64 is today's episode, and we have a great book for you. So, Chris, why don't you tell them about the book?
Yeah. I'm, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I'm excited about this one. Actually, I kind of talked about this one yesterday in our conversation a little bit. But it'll be good to dive a little deeper into it.
Mm-hmm.
The book is called from bacteria to Bach and back again.
Mm-hmm.
The evolution of minds by this guy named Daniel C. Dennett, which he is um, a philosopher slash I don't know. I don't know what you call this guy, but he's like he's like a mental expert, I guess, in general. This book's about the origins of the conscious mind, basically. Like, how did our minds come to be?
In theory.
In theory, right? Yeah, because it's a philosophical book, right, about the evolution of our minds in general. So nobody really knows the answer to this whole entire
That's
stuff.
my point.
Yeah.
I said that because I read your reflection. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. In theory, yeah, this is this guy's theory, right? So I'll go ahead and share my screen. But it was definitely an interesting book. I will say, just from a book perspective,
Mhm.
definitely an interesting book. And a book is interesting, and this is one of the criteria I always use to define if a book's interesting or not. If it challenges the way that you think by the end of it, and you've learned
But
something.
makes sense.
But yeah, I guess it doesn't even have to make sense. If it challenged the way that you think, and
When
it forced
challenges in contradicting, I think it's a fine line. So the thing that contradicts me, I said no, sorry.
and that's fair. I personally like books that are from a completely different perspective, right? I think of books like Gender Trouble is a book that one of my friends who's in the LGBTQ community recommended to me, about a book that was really
Right. I mean,
for him.
a book that is new to you and it challenges your your paradigm, but at the same time, it's not contradicting in the evidence that it shows you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
And
I
so,
agree.
but if you say, ups is down and down is up, but up is up, then that's contradicting. It's there's no evidence to support that. Then no.
As long as they can make me think the up might be down, I'm okay with that.
Exactly. That would be a good book.
Right. So anyway, this book in particular kind of troubled me. The reflection title is sometimes ignorance really is bliss. And what I mean by that is, this book took a deep dive into how consciousness works, and per this guy, per his theories, and per evolution, and per all this other stuff, and where our thoughts come from, and how our language developed, how cultures developed, things like that, all starting with consciousness, and like how does it all work, basically, and how do we get to where we got to today. As he was going through this whole entire construct of consciousness and in general, I've known for the past, well, I guess 2 years now. When I wrote this reflection, it was 6 months ago, I've personally known for the past 2 years of my life, I know what I'm doing. Like my daughter isn't here with me, right? Like I understand that she passed away, and it was awful, and it still hurts every single day. However, I've built a mental construct in my mind of a way where I can live my life with my daughter every single day, and that's the whole book, I Can't Imagine. And that was what it was about. That's what a lot of this journey has been about, is me figuring out ways to track Amelia, and to understand, her, the first track that she gave me was endure, right? And just keep fighting, of the way that she showed me how to live her life, and to keep following her, and to keep, searching for my values, and understanding how we can live for two together, and do all these different activities together. I'm very aware that I've been playing a mental game with myself, in order to pretend like she's still here, and to still have that feeling of, her being a big sister, her being a part of the family, her being a part of all this life, right? I don't know where I'd be without that mental construct, and the illusions that I've built in my mind around the values and living for two, and then my mission, my purpose, things like that, right? Well, this book systematically, went through and chopped it all down into itty bitty, bite-sized pieces of what I'm doing, at a more tactical level. when you look at things, when I, we talked about yesterday, zooming out to zoom back in, right? When I zoom out, like I'm very happy with my life and being able to spend time with my daughter and the ways that I can spend time with her every single day. And the journeys that you and I and Blake and have been on together, and all the stuff that we've been doing through this kind of work that we've been putting together. But when you zoom back in sometimes and you get down to the nitty gritty of it, like, thank God the foundation is strong is basically the point. Is like, one of the things that this book challenged me, and it made me feel kind of little gross, honestly, at the end of it, because it really tactically broke it down as to what I was doing and how our mind works and how I got to where I got to, right? And once again, it's not that I didn't already know this stuff, but it was just spending 16 hours with an audiobook with this guy, basically making me feel like, like I'm just been, playing mental gymnastics with myself for the past, 18 months or two years of my life, kind of thing. Like it didn't feel great, but at the end of the day, like at the end of this book, it didn't break me, right? It didn't change how my mental models, if anything, it might have strengthened it. Now I know even more in depth what I'm doing, and I'm still okay with it. I'm still living this life, and I still want to live this life, and this is the life that I'm going to continue to live, because this means I get to spend time with my daughter. So for me, I don't care what this guy had to say, but I will say at the end of the day, this is the mark of a good book, because it did challenge my paradigm. This is a paradigm that I've built a fortress around. I literally built a city, in the book that I wrote about Amelia, about, the new city that we're building together after the atomic bomb. Like I built a fortress around this idea and this mental illusion in my own mind. And, this guy made a tiny little crack, but it was a crack nonetheless in that fortress. And it didn't feel great. But, sealed it back up, and we're back off and racing, and no harm, no foul, but I appreciate the guy's thought. So anyway, that's the overall reflection I got from this book. The question that I was going to pose to y'all and anybody listening to this would be, is what ideas and illusions do you hold true that make you happy, right? This is these illusions, living for two with my daughter, and imagining a life with her, and all the stuff that I do, it makes me happy, and I feel good about that, and I get to still embrace my life with her. So yeah, just kind of curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are on the reflection, and then if there's any illusions you guys do to keep yourself happy and going forward, even though they're an illusion.
Well, I mean, the question is, most people probably don't know that it's an illusion. I would take it. It's kind of what the picture of the world that they put themselves in to be able to move forward, to be able to, it can be a million different things. I go back to the whole, honest with, you got to move forward. People who do bad things or don't live the best life, they usually come up with these justifications and things that, why they do what they do, and it kind of sounds like it's like paint, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, it's the picture they paint for themselves to move forward and be okay with the world life. And I sounds like I agree almost with what this guy's saying. It sounds like you kind of have to trick your mind into to not do whatever you got to do to be able to move forward and not be crippled by things, and not, I bet, feel sad, feel guilt, a bunch of different things. It sounds like it's kind of like ways to trick yourself to move forward, and so you feel happy, feel good about yourself, but it doesn't mean it's reality. But it also, it does, even though it might not be completely reality, it doesn't mean it's false either. So it just sounds very interesting. I'm sure it's very complex.
Yeah, it certainly is. And to your last point, like, what is reality is the point, right? Like, this is a reality that this is my life, and this is how I'm choosing to live my life. I think one of the things I'll say to the first point that you mentioned of, I don't know that a lot of people even know that they're choosing that. I think that might be the problem, is honestly, it's like, if you're living in somebody else's illusion and you're just, going along with the flow, like, that sucks, right? Like other people's language and culture and ideas that have shaped your life, and you have no ownership over that. Like, I have full ownership of the illusion that I've built my life around at this point in time, and I'm happy with that full ownership of that illusion. I don't care if somebody tells me it's an illusion. I don't care if somebody tells me that I'm crazy. Like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I'm okay with that, but I have full ownership of that. I think to your point though, like, I don't think a lot of people have ownership of their illusions. So maybe if they read this book, they might be like all jacked up, like, but yeah.
I mean, when you were talking about this, there were a lot of things I felt like in my life that I've kind of taken, I guess, some reflection, looked back on and had my own illusions, but like, and I think that was more probably to do with things I didn't want to deal with, poor decisions that I made, trying to tell myself why, like, oh, like this wasn't bad, or, maybe making wrong choices. And I, paint my own picture in my mind of justifying, certain actions that probably weren't, it's maybe what I wanted, but wasn't what was right. So I guess with yours though, you say, it's your illusion, but the question is if, so there's an illusion and then there's reality. I kind of wonder what is the alternate to the illusion, I guess, because I, you call it your own illusion a little bit, but I don't know what the alternative is of.
Well, the alternative is living the here and now, which is my daughter isn't here with me every single day, and that's really painful. And it hurts. Like, so if I could certainly still sleep in my bed every single day and be depressed and hate my life and blame the world for not having my daughter here with me, and all the things that my family went through. Or I could build an illusion around fighting, taking the values, learning from what Amelia showed me, how to live a life of virtue in general, and following her lead and trying to, that's what I'm saying, the illusion that I built the stuff around. Like, I'm choosing that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't think you're like denying that happened. I think you're accepting that, but you're taking, again, I think that's impressive that you take a situation that was painful and accepted it and found growth, found good, found, something positive out of it. And, the fact that, I don't think it's a, crazy thing to say, not in a crazy way. You're like, oh, she's here with me, but it's like, it's real. She's changed you. So, I mean, I to me, I don't see that as an illusion.
I agree. It's a blurred line, right? Like, I mean, it is my life, like now, like, but it took a while for it to take hold, but it took a lot of writing, reflection, doing stuff like this, learning, exploring. Like, it took a lot of things for me to build up that fortress of how I could go forward and still make this a part of my life, and
so outside of what you were talking about, your example, can you give some examples in the book of some illusions maybe some people have?
Yeah, the book isn't about illusions. The book is about what's that?
People tricking their mind basically into.
It's about how consciousness works, right? It's about how did language form, right? Like, why did we even start talking? Like, why did we start to share ideas with each other? Why did we then build cultures out of this stuff? How did the evolution of all these things happen? Of like the language that I tell myself, the ideas that I write down, the things that we talk about every single night on this kind of call, right? These are all a part of building that reality that I'm living right now, right? And the reality that we're all living together, and that's how our consciousness works, right? It's the language that we share, it's the ideas that we hold true, it's the values that we build cultures around. You know what I mean? Like, like,
it's not that it's so complex. It's probably hard to write a quick summary on.
Yeah, it's not the book itself, like, I mean, like, I don't even know how I would describe the book itself. I mean, it says, the disciples of Darwin have long aspired to explain how consciousness, language, and culture have appeared through natural selection, blazing promising trails that tend to always have confusion and end in controversy, even though the understandings of proteins and neurons, and it's going from bacteria to how do you go from a little celled bacteria to the symphony and Bach, right? And like, and all the stuff that we do now, like, how does that even happen is the point of this book. And I'm saying, I know how I've gone from my daughter passing away to where we're at right now today. And I know all the language, and I know all the things that we've used in order to get to that point in time. And I know what I've been doing, but at the same time, it hurts to hear it, broken down, like in a scientific way of somebody telling me, like, yeah, basically you're just, making shit up to for whatever, anyway. True, we've been talking the whole time. Let's get you in here.
Right. So we talked about this before. To me, what I believe is my reality. And this is basically, that's why I interject in the beginning, is his theory. to me, this is a poor attempt to explain how conscious works. And if you try to say you understand how conscious works, I wouldn't get near you with 100, 100 mile, because that's the absurdity of it.
Right.
You can never ever even have even a 1% chance of explaining it right. And so to me, taking this book as a guy tries to explain one possibly in the trillions and gazillion possibility that this may be one of the actual explanation that how conscious works. And we are taking it as if this is the reality, this is the truth. And we say, well, that kind of like dent my mental illusion, quote unquote. And so to me, like I say, this is a poor attempt at explaining it. It's in theory. This is one theory of, like I say, trillion possible combinations. So I think what you say, sometimes ignorance is bliss, because I haven't read this book, because I wouldn't be affected by it at all, because I wouldn't believe him.
What other parts?
Because for me,
parts of it that are true. I'm sure not the whole thing.
No. How can it be true? Even if you tell me, explain to me evolution, you have no evidence. It's accepted as the answer, but give me evidence. You tell me it's evolution,
theory.
even for that particular piece. And yet he say, hey, because of evolution, I have blah, 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 a bunch of other stuff that makes up consciousness. And yet we know nothing about consciousness. We don't know how it works. We don't know how our body works, nonetheless, our brains. And so to me, taking this as a point of reference and put it to a high level of reference is a wrong way to look at it.
I don't mind the attempt at it. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong.
An attempt at it, a poor attempt. But,
well, I don't know.
But that's the thing is for me.
He may have nailed it. I don't know. I mean,
or maybe there are pieces of what he said that couldn't have been right. Maybe
I'm sure there's something.
I could say a bunch of bullshit stuff, and I could be right.
You could be,
because I'm saying that is one explanation in 1 trillion. So it's a shot in the dark. No one knows. That's why we keep saying it. I know shit. You know shit. We know shit.
Right.
We know nothing. We just basically using some past experience to try to project a more kind of, to us, a reasonable explanation for what we see, what we observe. That's all we're doing.
Right.
We don't know whether it's true or not. And so reality to me is nothing more than what you think it is. If you're talking about Andre Agassi, he played tennis and he hates it, but then he convert his illusion to something, I'm going to play tennis for my charity, makes him happy. So to me, which is reality, which is illusion.
They both are. I mean,
exactly. What you believe is where your reality. There's nothing to, and I use that based on evidence.
I don't disagree at all. Like, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say is of like the sometimes ignorance is bliss. Like, look, if you're happy doing whatever you're doing, or unhappy, but either way, like, I mean, as long as
whatever you believe.
Right, exactly. Whatever you believe,
is
fine.
Is your reality. Because if you believe you're suffering, you will feel pain.
It's interesting that people like need sometimes like these answers, like how like religion, what happens when you die. They need to know, have something in that space.
That's why God never revealed himself. Because if he does, it doesn't work.
Yeah, dude, religion. I mean,
look, no one have ever seen God personally. They say, "Oh, I know a guy who know a guy who know a guy who's seen him."
Right.
That's how it works. That's the illusion.
Spirituality and religion are all an illusion in general. I mean, like,
it's an illusion.
But at the end of the day, if it makes you feel like you live a happier life, like, great. Like, I don't care if you're a Buddhist, if you're a Catholic, if you're a Jew, like, whatever. It doesn't matter if whatever the beliefs you hold true help you to feel safer and secure and happier and live in a value-driven life, which is what this is really all about. Like, then more power to you. But like, if somebody were to go in here, let me say it this way: if you're like a devout Catholic, right, and you spend your entire life, going to Catholic church and going to school and going to charity functions and doing mission trips and whatever. And then you read a book like this where they're basically like, they broke it down to like why you believe in what you believe in and they're trying to put a chink in that life of yours you've built. And you're like, wait a minute, like, I don't need, that's fine. You can tell me that, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm still happy and going to live my life this way. If your illusions that you've built in your mind are strong enough. If they're not, they'll break down pretty quick and you'll go like, shit. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't really believe in this whole, global warming thing or whatever. Like, it's, I'm not going to live my life this way. Like, I'm done.
Well, like I say,
I'm not a
sometimes
vegan,
ignorance is
like,
bliss, and
like,
sometimes
yeah.
it makes you worse, because whether or not, something happens and you believe in something that's contradicting to the evidence. The evidence is what I look for, right?
Yep.
If you're able to move on with your core values, whatever you believe, and it makes you happy, that's evidence. It's evidence that that it works for you. That is your reality, and everybody has their own reality. And
absolutely.
Who say that isn't the way it works? You're telling me because of all this mechanics and how the genes or whatever is put together is this technical method of how things work. That's reality. Well, who says?
Right. I literally I'm finishing up that you guys have got to read that Molecule More book about dopamine. It was so good. I'm just now finishing up today, and man, like, that book will give you a little bit of a mental mess up as well, because it's like man, is it just a bunch of chemicals? Am I controlling the chemicals, or are the chemicals controlling me? Right. Like is it, I mean, and to be fair, like, I actually would say, my general first impression of that is going to be, I feel like both? The way that, yeah, it can be both. That's what I was exactly. Going to say. I think it's like a freaking partnership,
here. It's ecosystem. You can make yourself have dopamine by consciously trying to
focusing on these things, and
like,
I want more learning, right?
You
like,
want
I like to learn.
You want dopamine? Go hug your kid.
Right.
Go hug your kid.
You
get dopamine.
It's the awareness of what's going on. It's the awareness of why you want to do
right.
And it's
So you can induce it, or it can induce you by you do nothing.
Exactly. So that's honestly when you find a value. It's like when you find something that you really enjoy and you want more of that, and it's something that you can't really explain. That's why values are so important. It's like, look, learning, I can always consume more and more and more learning, and it never gets old. Like, every single day I wake up and I'm like, oh, I can learn about dopamine today. I can learn about the consciousness today. I can learn about the gut yesterday. I can learn about. And that's
the thing is, trees, like, say, sometimes ignorance is bliss, but it's not all the time, because you need to know. You want to know how dopamine works, and sometimes you know how to trick the dopamine to work for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So that'll be a conversation for another day, in like 4 months down the road. But yeah, we can kind of wrap today, unless you guys have some final thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like we don't know anything.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
We don't know anything. We don't know anything. And so do the things that makes you happy. I think that what matters the most.
I 100% agree. Awesome. So the question we can leave everybody with:
things that make you happy aren't just because you want the chemical, you're craving something because the chemical.
It's taking control of what makes you happy, which is what values are for, and a mission and a why and a purpose, right? Like this is you saying, I'm going to build my mental construct of the world that I'm going to be the happiest in, and then it's,
yes, you're building your foundations and your environment, and put yourself in it, because that's what you want. That's what you desire. So you build that construct.
Right. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Mind blown. Right. All right. So
also complex that nobody really knows. It's just, and it's the funny thing is people act like and talk like they know.
Yes. At the end of the day, no one knows. So I say, do what works for you.
Agreed.
And let people believe something different too. Even if it's not the same, that's all right.
That's all right. That's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess that's all the time we have today. So we'll see you next time. If you guys have any comments, feel free to put them down, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See ya.